Most people believe the rivalry between the United States and China is a battle between democracy and communism. That's certainly how it's often presented. Turn on the news, listen to speeches from Washington, and you hear the same message again and again. The world is divided between democratic countries and authoritarian ones, and America sees itself as the leader defending democracy. But what if that's only half the story? What if one of the biggest misunderstandings about China is that the West assumes Beijing wants to spread its political system to the rest of the world? According to former Singapore diplomat Professor Kishore Mahbubani, that's exactly where many Western governments get China wrong. Let's take a look at what he has to say.
I think one question, a big question in America, a big assumption in America is that China wants to transplant its model all around the world. It wants to ultimately encircle America with authoritarian regimes, right, or autocracies, and I think people would, some people would see the Belt and Road Initiative as part of that. So I guess I want to ask you, what is your sense for what the Chinese leadership actually does and doesn't want in terms of reshaping the world?
I'm glad you asked the question. I've been trying to think of some good news I can share with your audience. Here's the best piece of news I can share with an American audience, that Americans believe that they have a mission to improve the world, and the best way the United States can improve the world is by sharing the secret of its democracy with the rest of the world. And the more countries become democratic like America, then it will be a better world. And I, by the way, I agree that democracy is good, and I think it'd be good for the world to have more democracies. And I support that mission. But of course, the Chinese, by the way, unlike the Americans who think that anybody can be an American, the Chinese believe that only a Chinese can be Chinese. And only a Chinese can appreciate Chinese civilization. And if you try to go to China and you say, I want to become Chinese, they look at you, say, well, you can speak the language, you can sing Chinese songs, but you can't be Chinese. You know, you got to be Chinese. And so the Chinese have absolutely no desire to convert the world to the Chinese system. And here, paradoxically, even though the Americans are liberal, they cannot accept countries with different forms of government. The Chinese are not liberal, but they can accept any kind of government in the world, and they will work with you regardless of your form of government. So people talk about the Belt and Road Initiative. One of the countries that is enthusiastically part of the Belt and Road Initiative is Greece. Now, Greece, as you know, is the mother place of democracy, and Greece will remain democratic. The Chinese have absolutely no desire to transform Greece in any way. All they're saying is, we can help you build a port. And, you know, at the time when the Greeks were let down by their fellow Europeans, the country that saved them was China, with the investment in the port, right? So, and the Chinese will work with any country.
And
they really don't care what system you have. It's your decision. You choose your system, we choose our system. And this, by the way, is also under international law, the fundamental principle of the United Nations Charter, which is that each country should be allowed to choose its own form of government.
What Professor Mahbubani is saying is actually pretty simple. The United States and China see the world in two very different ways. For America, foreign policy is often about values. Many US leaders believe democracy brings more freedom, stability, and prosperity. Because of that, promoting democratic values has been an important part of American foreign policy for decades. China, on the other hand, looks at the world differently. Beijing isn't focused on convincing other countries to adopt China's political system. Instead, it's focused on expanding trade, investing overseas, and building long-term economic partnerships. Before China works with another country, it usually isn't asking, are you a democracy? No, it's asking, can we work together? That simple difference helps explain why China has been able to build relationships with countries that have completely different political systems. Take Greece, for example. Greece is known as the birthplace of democracy. Yet in 2018, it joined China's Belt and Road Initiative, one of the largest infrastructure projects in modern history. Chinese shipping company COSCO invested more than 1 billion US dollars to modernize the port of Piraeus. New equipment was installed, the port became much more efficient, and today it's one of the busiest container ports in Europe. For Greece, the investment helped create jobs and boost economic activity during difficult period. But here's the interesting part. China never asked Greece to change its political system. It didn't ask Greece to cancel elections, right? And it didn't ask Greece to adopt communism at all. You know what? Greece remained a democracy before the investment, and it remains a democracy today. That's exactly the point Professor Mahbubani is making. China seems far more interested in building trade than exporting its political model. And Greece is far from the only example. Today, China is the largest trading partner for more than 120 countries around the world, from Southeast Asia and Africa to Latin America and the Middle East. Chinese companies have invested in ports, highways, railways, power plants, and industrial parks. These projects aren't acts of charity. Like every major power, China is looking after its own national interests. More trade means more business, more influence, and a stronger economy. But that's different from trying to persuade every country to adopt China's political system. For many developing countries, the biggest challenges aren't political. They need better roads, they need reliable electricity, they need modern ports, and they need factories that create jobs and help grow their economies. When China offers to help build those things, many governments are willing to work with Beijing regardless of political differences. That's one reason China's influence has expanded so quickly over the past 2 decades. Many countries aren't choosing China because they want to become more like China, right? They are choosing China because they see economic opportunities. Of course, that doesn't mean every Chinese investment is perfect. Some Belt and Roads projects have faced criticism over debt, transparency, or environmental concerns. Others, however, have delivered major improvements in infrastructure and trade. The point isn't that one side is completely right and the other side is completely wrong. The point is that the United States and China often approach international relations from very different starting points. America has traditionally placed greater emphasis on promoting democratic values and political institutions. China has placed greater emphasis on trade, infrastructure, and economic cooperation. Those different priorities shape how each country builds partnerships around the world. And that's where Professor Mahbubani believes many Western analysts misunderstand China. If you assume Beijing is trying to export communism the same way America has promoted democracy, you are likely to misread China's strategy. China's main goal isn't necessarily to make other countries govern like China. Its main goal is to strengthen its economy, secure markets, protect supply chains, and expand its global influence through trade. Whether you agree with that strategy or not, understanding it helps explain why countries with very different political systems, including many democracies, continue working closely with Beijing. In the end, the competition between the US and China may not simply be about democracy versus authoritarianism. It may also be about two very different ways of building influence. One believes ideas and values shape the world. The other believes trade and economic partnerships shape the world. And if policymakers continue viewing China through the wrong lens, they may keep misunderstanding what Beijing is really trying to achieve. So, what do you think? Is China really trying to export its political system? Or is its strategy mainly about trade and economic influence? Let us know what your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this analysis interesting, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out our next deep dive into the world's biggest geopolitical stories. Thank you for watching.